Hi, I'm Dana and I'm with you again for another kind of deep dark video that I wish I didn't have to make. But there's been quite a situation in the part of the autism community that I'm in on Twitter and Instagram, and it ties into a lot of the stuff I've been talking about lately with how a lot of autistic women can be very susceptible to abuse. And I think it ties in with a lot of the things that I talk about and experience and generally what this channel is about. So I feel like it's a video that I really do need to make, but I've been putting it off and not really wanting to because the situation's been very upsetting and distressing and horrible. This is such a drama channel video to be making, and I really didn't think I'd ever do something like this. I don't like it, but we're gonna get into it. So I'm not gonna be going into details with names and the like, but if you follow me on Twitter, it probably won't be that hard to figure out. And I'm also slightly concerned that I'm going to find other people that have been affected by this through doing this. So there's that. Right back when I first started making YouTube videos, I made a video about not having any friends, and especially having been at the time recently diagnosed autistic, I really didn't have any autistic friends. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any friends at all. And it was a really rough time for me. And from that video, I got a message from a person that we'll call him H. It's the easiest. So I got a message from H, and it was someone else in the autism community. It was another autistic person that was the same age as me that didn't really have any other friends. And we started chatting. We had a good amount in common. We liked a lot of similar TV shows. We had similar experiences and opinions, and we got on fairly well. And a friendship developed, a friendship formed. I was in a very, very vulnerable place. I was in an abusive relationship that I hadn't yet realised was abusive. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any sort of support system. I had the abusive guy that I was with at the time and my internet friend H. And he offered me a lot of support and encouragement and really kind words when it came to especially to YouTube and to me as a person and my appearance. And there were many, many points that it went way too far. He would give me compliments that were just straight up inappropriate, that he would turn this context of the situation to sexual things, or to me marrying him, to the fact that he was the best thing on the planet and it was such a shame that I wasn't going to be with him, things like that. Things that made me extremely uncomfortable. But this is where the autism really plays into it. I was I'm just being silly. He's my friend. It's just a joke. It's just banter. I'm being uncomfortable over nothing. I'm just being a bit silly. I just wrote it off. I just shrugged my shoulders. There were a few times that I'd be like, oh, that's a bit much, and he'd apologise. But for the most part, I just laughed it off and tried to change the conversation because I thought I was being silly. I thought there was no need to be uncomfortable around my friend. And yeah. So we carried on with our friendship, and at one point I went to meet up with him. We met up and we went playing watching, and it was incredibly awkward and uncomfortable. He kept asking me for hugs that I didn't really want to give, and when I did hug him, he'd really hold on and make it a very, very long, uncomfortable hug, But I felt awful for this guy because by this point we'd been friends for maybe 6 months or so, and his messages were constant. I got at least a message a day off him whether I replied or not, and a lot of the messages would be asking for video calls, asking to meet up. It was a very, very full-on friendship, and I didn't have any other friends at the time, so I went with him. And I also felt fucking awful for him because as far as I was aware from what he'd told me, I was the only friend this guy had, and he was very sheltered and very naive and very lonely, and I felt really, really fucking awful for him a lot of the time. So even if I didn't want to do a call, he would first of all bombard and consistently ask, and I'd be like, I'm too anxious to do a call and I'm really depressed and I don't want to do a video call with you. And he'd be like, but I'll cheer you up, but you'll be less anxious once we're chatting. You can, there was no way of getting out of it. I felt very boxed into having to communicate with him and having to do these things, from both how he went about it and my own empathy and feeling bad for him and feeling sorry for him. as well as also being very lonely and very vulnerable myself. And he gave the image of being like extremely insecure and really not knowing like how it is to have good friends. And I was really like, oh my god, I can be a good friend to this guy. I have to be a good friend to this guy because no one else ever has been. And even though he's like, you know, often making me uncomfortable, often like turning the situation to something that's quite inappropriate, and just I'm not actually enjoying this friendship, I have to like be the person that's a good friend to this guy, because he's trying real hard to be a good friend to me, and he's just missing the mark because he's autistic and he's sheltered and he's naive, and it's not his fault, you know? He's trying his best, and I can be a good friend and I can help him to be a better friend to me, and then he'll be able to make more friends because he'll be a better friend and he'll have more understanding of boundaries. And you know, it was so silly, it was so stupid of me, but I really took so much of it onto myself and was like, I can fix it, I can make him happy, I can like, you know, oh, it's such a red flag of my personality and such like how I am in relationships as well. Like I really just thought that like I just needed to offer this guy some support and good friendship and he'd be okay, you know? So there were times when I would ignore him for like weeks on end, and he'd still be like regularly messaging me like on the daily. And he also like replied to like every Instagram post, every tweet, every message I sent him would get a near immediate reply. So I was like, oh, this poor guy is literally like on his phone all day, every day, just like waiting for me to like interact with him and message him, you know, because he replies the moment there's any chance to interact with me. And like I say, I was friends with this guy for like, I think near on 2 years. So my life changed like quite dramatically during the time that I was friends with him. I broke up with my abusive ex and got a girlfriend, and that like I had like a whole like sexuality awakening and was like, shit, I think I'm a lesbian. And he made so many inappropriate and like slightly homophobic jokes that I again just like laughed off and wrote off, because I was like, he's my friend and like he feels comfortable to make these jokes because I'm queer, and he like, you know, I thought there was some sort of like understanding between us. I thought there was a genuine friendship. So there were a lot of things that made me very uncomfortable that I was willing to just write off and willing to give him the benefit of the doubt and take pity on him essentially, which is a terrible thing to do. And I wish I hadn't done it. I hate it when people do it to me. I don't know why I thought it was okay to do it to someone else, but you'll see, it's fine. Then I started making friends in real life, and he got so passive aggressive about it. He really I cancelled a video call at one point because I'd been invited to a party the day of, and I was like, I'm gonna need that time to like be doing my hair and makeup and getting ready for the party. And I get that it's crappy to cancel on someone for other plans, I get it. But also I'm cancelling a video call with an internet friend to go to a real life party with real life friends. You know, like it's contextually there should be like an allowance there. If someone did that to me, if I was gonna video call an online friend and they were like, actually I can go to a real life party, I'd be like, fucking go for it. I'll FaceTime you tomorrow or the next day, or like, you know, like real life things take precedent over internet things. That should be the way it is. But he got real fucking passive aggressive, and there was so many times that I like cancelled things with him or wouldn't get back to a message quick enough because I was with real life people, and he made me feel like such a bad friend. And he did it in a way where like, that's the thing, is he did it in such a way of like, oh, poor little me with no friends, and you have friends now, and like it's fine because I support you and I want you to be happy, but like, oh, poor little me. And like, you know, it was so like, I felt like he was being accepting of it, and I felt like I was really doing this guy dirty, and I felt really awful about it. So cut to, I'm out and about, I'm doing stuff, I'm living my life, it's late at night, I think it was like 10:30 p.m, and I get a message from H that's this like quite long like private messages between me and someone else have been released, and I know it looks bad, I know that it was inappropriate, but I'm really sorry and it will never happen again, and like, you know me and I'm not a bad person, I'm really sorry. And I can't remember what I was doing. I think I might have been like at a party or at a friend's house. Like I was in the middle of a social situation. So I fired back a quick like, I know you're not a bad person, my man, it's all right, don't worry about it. Didn't think that much of it, and I get up the next morning and I've been added to a group chat with like 20 other people, and I'm like, I think I've missed something here, haven't I? So I did a little bit of digging, and the private messages that have been released were very, very, very inappropriate. They were very sexual in nature to another woman. I don't know why I said it like that. I wasn't with him. I wasn't like, I didn't, but like basically, So like to me and H, I'm this dude's only friend. And suddenly there's another girl, another woman, another person who's been getting like the same messages from him and, you know, sending messages back to him in like a friendly way. So I go on the profile and I have a little like look around and I find more messages, like more screenshots of messages between him and other people. And then I go into this group chat and there's 20 other people. Like I think at the time it was like 15, but there is now like 20 other people who have also been receiving and like being manipulated into having friendships with him on the basis of like he doesn't have any friends, he's this poor sheltered naive autistic lonely guy, you know. And we had all been receiving a similar type of like inappropriate relationship, inappropriate messages. I'm struggling to put it into words because it's the kind of thing where like if he had been being genuine, if this had been true, if I'd been his only friend, a lot of it still would have been inappropriate and a lot of it still wouldn't have been necessarily okay. But I definitely would have understood it and been like, I'm okay with it because I understand where it's coming from. I think this is something we can work on. But the fact of the situation is that I can't bring myself to believe that he didn't understand what he was doing. I don't believe for a minute that he didn't know that he was manipulating us into these friendships. I don't believe that he didn't know he was making us uncomfortable. You know, you don't do this to 20 different people and not realise what you're doing. That's just the fact of it. You know, and obviously we've all been like sending screenshots, we've all been sending the messages that we received, and like some of it was copy and pasted, some of it he was literally copy and pasting to each of us. He was bombarding us all for calls, and all of us were receiving little hints that like maybe there was something going on, that maybe something had like happened, but he had manipulated and scammed and like bamboozled a lot of us into thinking like we were this dude's only friend, and it was purely on our like empathy and our pity and our kindness that this guy was receiving any sort of social interaction. And we all felt a sort of duty of like educating him and helping him like learn boundaries of friendship. And it's really fucking gross that we were all like manipulated into doing that by someone who absolutely didn't need it. And he, you know, really relied and preyed on the fact that he could come across as this poor autistic guy. He could pull the autism card and be like, oh, well, I just didn't understand that was inappropriate. I just didn't understand that was a boundary, you know. And I'm someone that's been someone who's been in a lot of situations where I've misunderstood a boundary or misunderstood a social cue or whatever else in a similar way to him. So I felt like I could empathise and understand it. But I learn from it, you know? If I upset someone, if I've done something inappropriate, I learn from it and I don't do that thing again. But he repeated the same things over and over and over again, intentionally, to like 20 fucking people. You know, I was gonna say dozens, and it's not quite dozens, but a lot of people. You know, that's more friends than like a normal fucking person has, in my opinion. I don't feel like most people have 20 friends. And yet this guy genuinely like bamboozled and scammed 20 of us into being close friends with him and continuing to maintain this friendship with him even when he said inappropriate things and even when he made us uncomfortable, because we felt bad for him. And he absolutely preyed on that, you know. And it's especially, I think, tying into like autism and being able to take advantage of autistic people, even though he is also autistic, because all of us in the group chat are either women or femme presenting or assigned female at birth, you know, like types of things. Like some of us are non-binary, but from like the homophobia that I received from the dude, I don't think he cares, you know. I don't think he's gonna like mentally acknowledge that someone's non-binary. I don't think he's the type. So he's seen us all as being women, even though we're not all women. We're, as far as I'm aware, all autistic, and a bunch of them also have fucking like chronic disabilities and things that he just didn't give a shit about. Like he literally gave one of these people COVID just so that he could meet up with them, like knowing he was unwell. Like it's insane how little care and empathy he had for the people that he was scamming into being his friend and claiming that he really wanted to be friends with. You know, he wanted to meet up with us and do video calls with us and everything, and messaged us all consistently, like almost every day. And yet he couldn't show like basic empathy or care of like, you know, not doing that to people or not giving someone COVID or just generally being fucking weird sometimes, you know. And I know that it's gonna be argued, oh, but he is autistic, because it's been argued on Twitter already. And I totally get that. And I think that there's lots and lots of things that him being autistic does play into. He knew this was wrong because it's a very obviously wrong thing to do. you know, and as much as like I try to keep these videos sort of like upbeat or whatever, I feel really silly, I feel very angry, I feel very used, and it's been a fucking horrible situation. And I'm really, really glad that like the group chat between me and the other people it's happened to has been set up on Twitter, because otherwise I would feel very alone and used and silly and stupid all on my own. And you know, saying that, it's extremely helpful because the exact same things happen to them from the same person, and I don't for a minute think that any of them are silly or stupid or anything. I think like you're really empathetic and you're really kind. It was really nice of you to do that, even though we've all been fucked over. So that's helpful. But yeah, as much as I am like, this is obviously a very specific situation, this isn't something that's going to happen all the time, I think it's something that we do need to be aware of. I think that a lot of autistic people are manipulated into friendships and relationships and all sorts of other situations with people against our will, or even like with our will, because we just don't get the full context of things. We're happy to push away how uncomfortable we are and assume that we're assuming the wrong thing or picking up the wrong social cue, and we're probably not. So yeah, take this as a bit of a warning. If you've ever had any sort of a similar situation of any sort, leave it in the comments if you want to start some sort of a discussion around this. I just feel like it's something that needed to be talked about. It's something that we could maybe have a discussion about. It's probably something that other people have experienced to some capacity. So that's the video. I self-promote at this point in my YouTube career. That felt disgusting, I don't know why I said that. But yeah, you can pay me for my content if you want to, if you like it enough, over on Patreon, where you'll get early ad-free uploads and the occasional bit of extra content. I was going to call it spicy extra content, but it is not spicy, I assure you. You can also donate to me on Ko-fi if you want it to be like a little one-time thing. I always appreciate that, it's very nice of you. Someone donated me like £7 there the other day, and then I used that to go get me dinner. It was fucking sick, I love that, thank you for doing that. You can also become a YouTube member, and that means you get one of my little mushroom people next to your name. I think it's very fucking fun. It makes me real happy every time I see one of you comment with it. That's all the paid stuff. You can subscribe to me here for free. That's my favourite one because it's free. That's all I do for people to support other creators, so I'm not mad if that's all you can do for me. It'd be lovely if you subscribed. You can also like the video if you're on, but I don't really know what that does, and I don't even like check my liked ratio or whatever. I just see if people comment on it or not, like Christ. I don't know why I'm going into the full explanation on that. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram, where I'm increasingly less likely to reply to any fucking messages because of things like this. And you can also follow me on TikTok, where I've been posting regularly, and I got 2 TikToks with like 1 million views each, which is fucking mental. It's so 1 million views, guys. Oh, proud of myself. It does mean that people that like know me or know of me in real life have been seeing my TikToks, and that's increasingly making me realise how much I overshare. So if you want to see me overshare before I stop on TikTok, you should follow me there now. But that's that for now. I post here on Thursdays and Sundays. So yeah, subscribe. It'd be lovely if you did. Whoever you are, wherever you are, whoever you are, wherever you are. What's my fucking outro? So that's the video. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year. I will see you again in a couple of days.